Hello, everyone. And just like that, we're in April. Crazy how quickly the days are moving. It seems like March was just non-existent. Thanks everyone for joining us here again for the best time of the month, driving success. We're going to be talking about implementing new changes. So implementing new changes, whether it's involved your internal admin team, your drivers, or outside vendors can always lead to some chaos if not approached in a strategic way. Implementing a safety program is one of those situations where most of the time it's going to affect multiple departments, internally, your drivers, and even an outside vendor or resource. If solutions are intertwined. So we are super excited to have our partners from Zenduit here today to talk about navigating through a safety program rollout. If you've attended one of our webinars before, you know the drill. I have to do my little housekeeping before we get into the good stuff. So don't feel like you need to write all the information down that will be presented today. We are recording it, and you will have access post webinar to your email or on our website. We will also share any contact information accordingly if you have specified questions for our team or our presenters. And speaking of questions, we will have some time for Q&As at the end, so feel free to throw them into the Q&A option at the top of your screen throughout the presentation, and we can get to them at the end. So these webinars are for you, so don't hesitate to throw those out there. And with that, I'll hand it over to our guests.
All right. Thank you very much, Emily. So welcome everyone. My name is Ahmed Afra, and I've been at Zenduit for the past 5 years. And I want to thank you for joining us today. And in this short but packed session, we'll walk through an approach to transform your approach to fleet safety and performance, and more specifically on how you can roll out a safety program that will actually stick and not fail. So our agenda for today, we're gonna cover different aspects, whether it's launching a successful safety program for your fleet, where we'll look on first why programs fail and how to avoid those common mistakes. And then we're gonna break down what we call the 4 phases or the 4 steps or of a successful rollout. And then we'll discuss how to get your drivers to buy in, how to create a coaching workflow and a program, and finally, how to measure your success, right? How to measure your ROI to ensure that your efforts are paying off. All right.
So before we
Yeah.
kind of jump into this, can you kind of share with us, through your experience with your time with Zenduit or just in the industry, is there like a specific customer testimonial or, an event that really triggered you to want to share how to have a strategic, safety program rollout? Is there a customer in mind or a story that you can kind of share with us?
No, that's a great question, Emily. Actually, it's customers, right? So it's numerous of them, and this is what prompted our topic for today. It's based on our experience while onboarding newer companies, right? So we noticed that there's always that common trend where a fleet adopted technology without implementing what we call an effective safety program. They invest in the technology, they struggle how to properly integrate it in their day-to-day operations. And one of the key issue what we found was consistent coaching or clear, not having consistent coaching or clear expectation from the drivers, which we're gonna talk on later on in the session, right? And this led to inconsistent results, all right, a resistance from the drivers and even confusion. And recently worked with customers, right, who had a significant issue with speeding, right? They were seeing numerous accidents. That are speeding related in 7 of their 9 locations all across the state. So we worked with them and we developed and implemented a structured safety program that nearly eliminated 5 out of their 9 locations. And we're still working with them as well. We're tackling it location by location. And this so far we're seeing tremendous impact on both their safety, performance, and their fleet operations. So that's why we always kind of advocate this topic due to these experiences that we've seen with customers.
Great. Thanks for sharing that.
All right. So without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and jump into our agenda here, starting off with why most safety programs fail. So So in this slide, I'm gonna take a moment to talk about why safety programs, most of them at least, fail, even when the fleet uses and invests in cutting edge technology. So we've seen a big shift in the industry where more and more fleets are adapting dash cams, telematics, AI-based safety tools, right? But the problem is that the technology itself is not enough. Even the most advantaged video safety solutions will fall flat if it's implemented in a rushed fashion and consistent, and whether it's disconnected from the people that will use it on a day-to-day basis, especially if it's meant to help them. And the biggest differentiator between the success and the failure that we've seen on our end is trust, right? And the trust is gonna be between the managers and the drivers. So when the drivers feel like they're being surveilled, right, and monitored instead of being supported, then we're gonna lose the buy-in fast from these drivers. So instead of that, we should give them the feeling that these tools are here to protect them from false claim, unsafe environments, and even unnecessary risk. And if we were to categorize it in three main reasons, it's gonna go as such right here. It's the rushed implementation. We deploy the system too quickly with no time for education or alignment between different departments within the companies. Lack of driver support. Drivers aren't involved early on, so they resist the change. Inconsistent coaching, all right? When there's no clear feedback mechanism or structure around it and feels just random and unfair at times. So this is why it's super important to have communication before the installation or before even like starting off this whole process, especially around the technology side. And this is why we've seen, at least within our experience, why most of these safety programs fails. So, well, most of them do fail. What does a successful one looks like, right? So, let's shift gears now and talk about what success looks like here. So we have three main applications here. One is around implementing framework, right? So implementing framework, this is where the foundation happens, where it involves both managers and drivers in the design of the program, where you're not just installing the technology, but you're building a culture, a safety culture. And at this point, this is where you define your goals, you set expectations, you outline responsibilities, and you review, and you need to assign who reviews events, who coaches, and what escalation, just to have some kind of an SOP in the beginning before you dive in into the actual process itself, right? Second part is to track our progress. So once we get the program up and running, the next step would be the monitoring our behavior, right? So you want to track both the safety violations that can be speeding, distraction, etc., and also the positive stuff. So especially when we're seeing improvements, right? And this is gonna be the main focus on your coaching that you would focus on to support your drivers fairly and consistently. And lastly is we want to measure improvements, right? So we want to evaluate your results, your ROI. Are we seeing fewer incidents? Are our insurance claims going down? Are drivers getting more exonerated from false claims? So on and so forth. This is where it's hard to prove this data without kind of having first the technology and fine tuning it later on down for the long run. So the key takeaway here for an effective safety program is not a flip of a switch. It's about who's guiding your fleet through a process where every step builds trust, accountability, and safer outcomes. So now, in the next slide, we're gonna talk about why telematics matter. Even though we said that technology alone does not solve a safety problem, it is still true that it plays a pivotal role within having a program, because without the technology itself, you'll be guessing on what to coach and what to focus on from a safety perspective. So telematics, especially with the dash cams, they give you the data and insight needed to help you understand what's really happening on the road, right? So it can be from unsafe traffic patterns, risky behavior, tailgating, heartbreaking, right? It gives you real world context for each event that's happening. And this is kind of essential, especially in the day and age that we live in right now. So, and even here, you can look at the chart that we have to see that the global telematic market is projected to be more than triple by 2034. And this is tells us something really big, that it's no longer a nice to have telematics within our fleet. It's becoming a standard. And fleets that aren't adopting it at this point here, they're gonna fall behind, not just in terms of safety, but in areas like current litigation, protection, and even like driver retention, productivity, so on and so forth, right? So while it's not the only piece within a safety program, it is part of that foundation to give you insights into your operation as a whole. So now that we have the different pieces that we need, what are the 4 steps for or the blueprint, right, for a safety program that actually works? So we structure it in a practical and easy to follow way. First is the program design, right? This is where we define our goals, identify what success looks like. Second would be communication and training, right? To get the early buy-ins, to keep things transparent, and to build trust from day one. Step C or step 3 would be around configuration and install. So this is where the telematics technology comes in, where we start simple, where all the technology in phases and avoid overwhelming both drivers and managers. And finally, we refine the program. It's not a one and done application. It's a journey. It's a process. It's not going to be done right on the first time or the second time. So we keep iterating on it, right? We use the data to improve over time. We code consistently, we incentivize good driving, and we scale what works. So let's start where it all begins here, which is designing our program. With clear goals and metrics, we start defining what success looks like for you as an entity, as a business, right? And where's the baseline for that is. So you can go ahead and start first by setting measurable goals, right? So when you're designing a program, setting a measurable goal is one of the most important steps to begin with. It gives you a direction, a purpose, and a clear way to track your progress, right? Some of those common goals can be around reducing at-fault collisions, lowering your insurance premiums, eliminating not at-fault claims, so on and so forth. But before you set your goals, you need to have a starting point, right? So for fleets that are just beginning with telematics technology, we recommend you using it for a couple weeks just to see what's your baseline. And from that point, you'll be able to understand where you currently stand, right? For fleets that actually already have technology in place, you can pull data from existing metrics that you have already and leverage that to establish your targeted goal. So the key is to start small and focus. Choose 1 to 2 high impact goals, and this way you'll be have a better chance to succeed at a few rather than getting overwhelmed by many. So whenever it's clear, measurable, it's gonna be easier to manage on our end. And now, after that, we set up our goals. The next step is to focus your efforts on the behaviors that we are looking to capture and that have the biggest impact on your safety. Trying to coach everything at once can overwhelm your team, your drivers, everyone in the company, right? So that's why we recommend start by 2 to 3 high risk behaviors. Mainly, like the most common ones that we all know about are speeding, which contribute to 1 in 3 traffic fatalities in every year, right? Distracted driving, tailgating. These are the main ones that we recommend fleets to focus on first, right, when it comes to their safety program. So narrowing down your focus early on makes your coaching effective, communication more clear, and results easy to track. So now that we have all those goals, those priorities set in place, now we're gonna dive into uh, the program and the design that we're gonna have is now around communication and training, right? So in this phase, we're gonna focus on clarifying our roles, responsibilities, our safety policy, and most importantly, getting drivers on board, right? So let's dive into the roles and responsibilities. So one of the biggest reasons that usually safety programs stall is, especially after launch, is no one really knows who's doing what or what they're responsible for. So that's why in the beginning, it's really important to set and clarify roles and expectations up front. Use these 5 simple questions to build structure and accountability. First, who's reviewing those safety? Is it a safety manager? Is it someone else from operations? So on and so forth. How soon should those events be updated, right? Are we expecting to review them within 24 hours, within a week? So we need some kind of SLA defined around those events that we're gonna get from the dash cams, for example. Who's responsible for coaching, right? It's important to know who's gonna be communicating with the driver earlier on, right? What time frame is the coaching kind of happening. So you should aim to have conversations with your drivers within 72 hours of different events that are being flagged. The quicker the feedback, the more effective it is. And finally, how will the coaching gonna happen? Is it gonna be in person, on the phone, or is it through the platform itself, right? So the system that you're adopting on your end. So having clear answers to these 5 questions at least gives you consistency and ensure that nothing slipped through the crack. All right. So now that we have this set up, now the next more important point is a safety policy, right? So whenever you're rolling out the new safety technology, your policy also needs to evolve alongside it. So a lot of pushback usually that stems from drivers is because they don't know how this technology will be used and what it means for them. So this is why updating your policy itself and clearly communicating it is gonna be pivotal within your program. So you can start by outlining what is the technology being used for, right? If it's a front-facing dash cam or a dual-facing dash cam, for example, what is it capable of? Like recording harsh events, captured distracted driving, or even providing real-time alerts. And be very clear about when the dash cam is recording and when it's not, how long the recording are stored, where are they stored, and who can access the footage and under what circumstances. And you need also, like we mentioned, to explain how and when the coaching will happen, whenever these events get flagged, and how are they going to be contacted. And most importantly, to lay out this learning process. A tiered system really works well based on our experience. First off, fans can be a verbal coaching. Second is a written reminder. Third is a formal warning, right? So this is gonna help. Oh, sorry about that. This is gonna help remove ambiguity, all right, and keep the system fair and consistent across all your drivers, all right. So putting that into your safety policy is gonna help you give transparency to your drivers and build confidence in your entire program mainly. Lastly, on the communication side of things, and one of the most important steps in this is getting drivers to buy in. And this is one of the most difficult one and the important ones is getting the trust of the drivers, right? That's why it's really important to do that early on whenever you're either buying into the technology, right, or establishing the program itself. Because drivers are the ones that are going to be impacted the most by these programs. And if they don't trust it, the entire effort that you're going to put in and invest in is going to go to waste. So these are some recommendations that we have on our end. Communicate at the very beginning, all right? Don't wait until the installation day of your cameras or any device to mention that the program is happening and that we're doing this. Involve the drivers from the planning phase, right? It's gotta make it a conversation. Don't make it a demand or a surprise. And this actually does help too, with union as well. Approaching union about it, telling that well, this is our plan. Let's work together on this. Gives you better results. Second is proactively debunk myth. All right. So be transparent. Like we said, within our safety policy, explain what the attack types do, what they don't do, and how footage will be actually used. Because a lot of resistance usually comes from fear or misinformation when it comes from these cameras, for example, right? Lead by example. Find an internal champion. Ideally, someone that is respected on the team, who believes in the program. And when drivers hear support from someone they trust, it will make a bigger difference. And also show exoneration footage for your drivers where and that's going to be the fastest way to win them over. Show them a moment where a driver was cleared of a fault thanks to having a dash cam. And it's going to make it crystal clear on the way you're planning on using these dash cams, right? And of course, we talked about policy with the clear coaching expectation. And lastly, and most importantly, is try to roll it out as a team initiative, not as a punishment tool. So don't make drivers feel like they're being singled out. Frame this as a company-wide effort to improve safety and to protect everyone, and not just to monitor specific individual. So mainly out of all of this that we discussed here, just when drivers feel informed, included, and protected, not punished, they're most likely going to engage with you in this program and help you succeed. So now that we tackled our program design, our communication, all right. So this is where we're going to go ahead and move on to our step C or step 3, which is the configuration and installation. This is where we're going to set up the technology, but instead of going all in on day one, the goal is to start simple and customize gradually as your program evolves. All right. So going into the next slide. When it comes to rolling out the technology, all right, less is more at the beginning. So we always recommend to start with the basics, especially when it comes to dash cams or in-cab feedback systems. If you're gonna overload the drivers with too many features right away, it's gonna lead to confusion. Same thing with managers as well, right? It's gonna lead to a lot of confusion, resistance, and distrust. Maybe lay out a roadmap, like at this stage we'll use these features, and later on this is something that we're planning on adapting, right? So start with the essentials, basic event detection, and in-cab nudges, right? For speeding, harsh braking, focusing on the 2, 3 behaviors that we discussed, all right, in our program goals. And then as drivers become more comfortable with the system, then you can gradually roll out real-time alerting, driver scoring, and even gamification features like leaderboards, for example. And when it comes to driver-facing features like scoring dashboards, only introduce them once the team is comfortable using the system. And you can see that within our chart right here. Just initial configuration first, gradual customization, and finally privacy and access for the driver. Even though it might be a bit low, but this is gonna help you build trust, confidence, avoid pushbacks from drivers, and it's gonna help you increase long-term adoption, all without like having to sacrifice the plans that you developed in the beginning. All right, and for our last step for our program is gonna be around two main things. It's gonna include having a structured coaching workflow and how we can go ahead and create ways to reward drivers. So this is the phase that your program shifts from being kind of reactive to proactive, and this is where you're gonna have iteration on continuously improving your system, your program based on data, based on feedback. So let's start with our coaching workflows. So once the system that you have set up in place is up and running, so it's not just now about collecting the data from the telematic devices. Now you need a process, right, to act on it, right? And this is where like you can have custom coaching workflows, right? Where it needs to be consistent, data driven, and most importantly, like transparent and fair, for example. So this is just a quick kind of flow that we have that we use with our customers where first and foremost, drivers start their trip. And if we identify the safety risk, we can go ahead and kind of flag it, right? And whenever we do that, the event gets uploaded to the system. And from that point on, a safety reviewer, can be the manager himself, will evaluate the event. And this is where the coach or the manager is going to go ahead and prioritize which drivers need attention based on maybe their safety scorecard or trend history, right? And then coaching always needs to be tailored. It's not, and not every driver has should have the same feedback, right? So someone with consistent speeding might get, let's say, an in-person coaching, instead of someone with rare incidents might just get a call, right? Or just additional feedback from the system or on the phone, right? And finally, the driver is going to be able to review the footage. Again, transparency, seeing their actions, right? And some of the coaching notes on their end. And this is going to help hopefully kind of like provide improvements over time, right? So this loop kind of creates, uh, helps you to spot patterns, to recognize progress, and to identify where training is needed the most. So, and it's not about just catching mistakes. That's the main purpose on this. Just kind of developing that, having drivers develop safer habits and patterns as we go on this program right here. And finally, on the step B for the refinement is incentivizing safety. All right. So when drivers know what's expected of them, they know their performance is going to be recognized, right? Engagement naturally increases afterwards, right? This is why it's important to set clear expectations for drivers on how they're going to be evaluated and where they stand amongst their peers, as we discussed before. This is where you want to introduce somewhat of a program reward that's first transparent, fair, and motivating. That's not confusing or arbitrary on its end. So always having that incentive, all right, can get the most out of your drivers. And it's not about spending a lot, by the way, all right. It's just about finding the right fit for your culture. It can be something simple as a gift card, for example, or some company branded gear, right? Wall of honor, for example, or like monthly employee of the month, poster, coffee and donut as well. They go a long way. So recognition doesn't have to be expensive, all right, but it's gonna When the driver feel that they are being seen and appreciated for the safe habits that they're doing on their end, like any one of us here in the workforce, right? Whenever you get that recognition, you feel more confident. You try to be more consistent, right? And that's gonna help with creating your long-term culture of safety. So now that we established all the four steps here, right, and we've launched our programs, we got the drivers in, right, and we start refining our approach to this, right. Now comes the most important part, which is measuring success. All right. In this final step, we're gonna see how you can evaluate the impact of your safety program and how to track ROI that matters to your business. So, to show the real impact of your safety program, it's important to track the ROI across multiple areas, right? Not just collisions or incidents. But to start off, here are like some of the categories that we kind of recommend on our end. The incidents, of course, which is the way you can measure it is by the number of infractions for the events that you're looking to capture, like harsh events, speeding, infractions, etc., and the overall number of incidents. So when you can start measuring those is 3 to 6 months after your program is implemented and your drivers have gone through consistent coaching. The other one that you can track with based on is the exoneration. So what you can measure is cases where drivers were cleared of fault, of fault thanks to having a dash cam footage, right? And the cost of the false claims that were avoided, right? And you can start as soon as you get the first exoneration from these footage that you're capturing. Insurance is another good one as well. So your premiums or at fault claim frequencies, and even at renewal negotiations, this is where how you can measure them. When to measure them can be 6 to 12 months post deployment, or your next cycle insurance cycle. Maintenance might be surprising, but it is definitely related on the safety side of things, especially maintenance that's related to safety wear and tear, right? Like brake pad usage tied to harsh driving, right? So expect to see changes 6 to 12 months into the program once driver behavior improves. Even retention, right? Driver retention, if you're tracking that on your end, you'll able to start to notice these trends 3 to 6 months in after launching a safety-based rewards program. So these metrics are going to allow you to build a strong business case internally and show that safety is not just a driver issue, it's more of a company-wide value with financial return. So now we're closing off with these two simple tools on our end here that you can use right away. A safety memo to help you clearly communicate your program to your drivers, outlining what's changing, why, and what's expected. And as Emily mentioned, we're going to be sending out the recording. We're going to be sending out the actual slide deck, so you're going to have access to those. And also for HR with driving policy template, we have those templates for you to use as well. And of course, you can adopt it and update it based on your own internal processes and policies, right? But just know these are good starting point for your end here. So we've covered a lot today. All right. My mouth actually dry at the moment. So from rolling out a planning to the workflows of the drivers, getting drivers to buy in, the ROI. So now I'd love to hear from you guys. So feel free to drop any questions in the chat, and I'll be more than happy to answer those.
Yeah, thanks for all the great information. I think, everything you presented could be taken even further than just the safety program. I mean, the steps and the way that you should approach any changes, even really even in a personal setting, is really helpful to kind of take it by bits. Yeah, I know we reached our allotted time, but please feel free to hang out with us if you have any questions. I do want to kind of ask, with telematics and cameras in particular, there has been a huge shift in what cameras or telematics was even like 3 years ago, right? So what kind of like tools or resources do you wish were available at the beginning, that you could like recommend now, or that you see as like a future implementation that would really impact a company?
No, that's an excellent question, Emily. That's something that we're actually kind of working on our end. So what we're doing right now is, so we're developing a driver app. It's not something revolutionary now, at least, right? but first and foremost to give drivers transparency into their action, their scoring, and where they stand, right? But we're looking to take this a bit further, right? In a way where we're trying to also give back time to managers, right? So we're planning for our cameras to have kind of its own AI logic and model to coach the drivers, right? So it already does report on the actual events that it reports on, right? So why not be the own, have it be its own kind of at least first line of coaching for the drivers. And it's not, we're not talking about the just the in-cab feedbacks and whatever, right? Because these things like they're quite common now. But let's say the way we want to aim from a workflow perspective, hopefully in the near future that we're working on is, let's say I'm a driver and I hop into the vehicle, right? Whenever the camera is gonna recognize me through facial or through any means, right? It's gonna tell me before we start our trip, Afra, here's how you performed last week, right? We see this amount of exceptions, this amount of things for speeding. So let's try to break. Let's try to like hold easy on the brakes, for example, right? We're trying to adjust those, right? So having your own kind of like AI handyman next to you to give you those pointers, right? Before having it escalate to the manager, right? And if we still see, of course, that the driver is not compliant and they're still doing the same issues, then we escalate to the manager. But at least having the camera be the first line, and not only from a punishment perspective, even if let's say the driver has been like driving really well, really safe, right? Even the camera being that positive reinforcement that, hey, Afra, you've been doing an amazing job. The past 4 weeks has been great, no violations. Actually, you did a heartbreak because someone cut you off, for example. We're gonna make sure that your manager knows about this. So having the camera not just being uh, a technology that is recording you, right? But having it also be someone that's giving you actual feedback, right, based on the way that you drive. So this is our way of first giving the managers back their time, right? That's one perspective, and also to continuously provide drivers with feedback on that front here. So yeah, that would be my response to the question, Emily.
Yeah, that's really cool how far cameras have come just even in such a short
Yeah,
amount of time. You know, I know I get into the office, I sign onto my computer and I go into like an autopilot mode, and I'm sure drivers kind of do the same. They get in the seat, turn their truck
yeah,
on, and then they're ready to roll. And so having just that extra reminder like right when you get in the truck, I can see how that's super beneficial for them before they, start their day. So awesome. I don't see any questions coming in particular, but like I said, we'll send out contact information on in our post webinar email. So thanks everyone for who joined us today, and thanks again to our amazing guests for providing such an awesome presentation. Stay on the lookout for the post webinar recording that will be sent to your inbox. You can also find us on LinkedIn, visit our website to watch previous webinar recordings or learn about the upcoming month's topic. We hope to see you next time, and remember to stay safe, stay compliant, and keep driving success. Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.
thank you everyone. Bye bye.